In this lecture, we're going to finish off our menu icon by creating a close icon and then transitioning to that close icon from this burger icon. So what we want to do is attach an ID to this particular div because this is the wrapper for our icon, for our mobile icon. So let's attach an ID here and let's call it mobile menu button. And what we want to do is attach a click handler to this mobile menu button. So whenever we click this div, we want to set a class of open. And when we have a class of open, this is where we modify these three lines on our burger icon. We want the first line to rotate 45 degrees. We want the third line to rotate minus 45 degrees. And we want the middle line to fade out. So if we take a look at the completed project, we can see that this is that type of transition. The top line rotates 45 degrees, the bottom line rotates minus 45 degrees, and the middle line disappears. So this is the type of functionality we want to imitate. So back in our code then, we've already taken a look at the hover selector and the screen size selector, as well as the group selector. And we want to do something similar with this mobile menu button. We want to add a class name for the mobile menu button, and we want to add a class name of group. So then when the group is open for any of these lines, then this is where we want to add our class names. So for example, where before we've used the group selector and we've used group dash hover colon and then any valid tailwind CSS class. However, now we want to have a group dash open colon and then any valid tailwind CSS class. Now, the open selector isn't available in tailwind CSS. So this is something that we're going to have to create. So this is a great introduction into our very first Tailwind CSS plugin. So these are known as variants, where we've got group dash open, this is known as a variant. And where we have hover colon, that is known as a variant. So we can create our own variants in Tailwind CSS. And this is a perfect candidate to use our own custom variant. So in our root directory then, let's go ahead and create a new folder, and we want to call it plugins because we're going to be creating a few different kinds of plugins throughout this course. So we're going to house all of our plugins in this plugins directory. So the first plugin we want to create is an open variant. So we can type open variant here. So we'll create an open variant.js file, and we need to import the plugin function from Tailwind. So at the top here, we can go ahead and add const plugin, set that equal to require, and we want to import that from Tailwind CSS /plugin. Then we want to go ahead and create a const open variant, and this is where we're going to register and set up our custom Tailwind CSS variant. So let's go ahead and use that plugin function then to register this new plugin. And this plugin function takes a callback function, which will be passed a number of different helper functions that we can use to register our new class name. So the class name we want to register is a variant class name. So we can go ahead and use the addVariant helper function that Tailwind CSS will provide to us in this callback function to our plugin function. So let's go ahead and destructure addVariant then from the callback function. And let's go ahead and use that addVariant function then. And the variant we want to create is group dash open. Just like before where we had group dash hover, now we're creating a group dash open variant. So then the second argument to this function will be the class name definition for this variant. So it's essentially where we're going to set up the functionality on what is actually going to happen when this group dash open class is applied to a particular element. So what we want to do is use the colon merge from Tailwind CSS to merge two different class names. So we want to merge the .group class name, which already exists in Tailwind CSS, followed by .open, which is the new class name we're introducing as part of this open variant plugin. And then what we want to do is just add an ampersand at the end here. So that's pretty much it. The last thing we need to do now is just export this plugin. So it's a very simple plugin, but it's going to be very effective for our use case for our mobile menu icon. So to export this plugin then, we just need to type module.exports, set that equal to open variant. So let's save this now then. And in our tailwind.config.js, in our plugins array, let's go ahead and register this new plugin. So we can go ahead and require, and we want to require from plugins/open_variant. So now in our index.html, when we're applying our group-open class to this first line in our burger icon, we want to rotate this 45 degrees whenever the group also has a class name of open. However, we're going to dynamically set and remove this open class, so we're not going to add it in and hard code it in for this class name just yet. But what we want to do is, for this first line in our burger icon, we want to rotate it 45 degrees. So let's go ahead and add a rotate 45, which is a tailwindcss class name, which will rotate, as we can see here in the generated CSS. It will rotate our div 45 degrees. Just go ahead and save this now. And before we take a look in the browser, obviously we need to add dynamically a class name to this mobile menu button div. So right at the top of our index.html, in our head tag, let's go ahead and add a script. And let's add a JavaScript event listener to that particular div. So we want to go window.onLoad and set this equal to a function. Then let's grab that div then by going const mobile menu icon and setting this equal to document.getElementById, and we want to pass the mobile-menu-button here, not icon. So I named it mobile menu button. If we scroll down and find this div then, it has an ID of mobile menu button. So let's scroll up then, and now that we've grabbed this mobile menu icon div, we can attach an event listener to it. So we want to attach a click event listener to it. So we can go mobile menu icon.add event listener, and we want to add a click event listener. Then within the handler then, we just want to check to see if the mobile menu icon has a class name of open. If it does have a class name of open, we remove that class name. If it doesn't have a class name of open, then we're just going to add that class name of open. So we can go mobile menu icon.classlist.contains and check to see if this mobile menu icon has a class of open. So if it does, we want to go mobile menu icon.classlist.remove open, else mobile menu icon.classlist.add open. So just go ahead and save this, and now we can take a look in the browser, and let's give it a refresh, and let's see what happens when we click on this icon then. We can see that this top bar for our burger icon is rotated 45 degrees. However, we want to add this as a nice transition. We don't want it all janky where it's just immediately changing. So let's go ahead and add some transition then. If we scroll down to our burger icon, let's just go ahead and add a transition of all, and then let's go ahead and target the group open again for the middle bar or the middle line. Let's go group-open and just set the opacity to 0, so this will fade our middle bar out. But what we want to do is make sure that this has a default opacity of 100. So it's going to transition from 100 to 0 whenever the group is open. And then we want to do exactly the same as the first line in our burger icon. However, we want to invert the rotation. So we can go group-open again, minus rotate 45 degrees now. And again, we want to add the transition all to each of our bars. So let's go transition all to the middle one and transition all to that last one. So let's save this and take a look in the browser now. Let's give it a refresh and click on our icon, and there we go. That's looking great. However, what we need to do is shift the bottom bar up and the top bar down. So let's go ahead back in our code then, and again target the group open state. So let's go group-open, and we want the top to come down by 8 pixels. And for this to actually apply, we need to add also a class of relative. So then for our last bar then, we want again group-open, but we want this minus top 8 pixels, so minus top 2. And again, we need to add that relative class. Let's save this and take a look in the browser now and give it a refresh. And let's click on our icon, and there we go. We can see our nice transition between our open and close icon. So if we take a look at this icon, whenever we're clicking on it, it does also look a little bit janky compared to the completed project. It looks a lot smoother. And that is because we also need to add a default class of top 0 to that top and bottom bar. So let's just go top 0 for the top and bottom bar. Let's save this, and now if we take a look in the browser, let's give it a refresh, and that is a lot smoother, our transition, because it's now transitioning from top 0 rather than not actually having a top set. So in the next lecture then, what we want to do is hook up our functionality to actually display then our mobile menu whenever our mobile menu icon is set to open. So we'll take a look at this in the next lecture.